This month of the How's All That Workin' For You podcast is sponsored by J. Brooks Coffee Roasters in Memphis, Tennessee. Urban Joe is the house favorite at J. Brooks for cold brew coffee. The legendary flavor of Urban Joe will ignite your taste buds with captivating shades of cocoa and cream. With a pleasantly balanced, bold body, the dark roast lover will fall head over heels for this roast. Cold brew is very quick and simple to make. It contains 2/3 less acids than hot brew coffee, so it's a perfect choice for anyone who has reflux or needs a stomach-friendly option for coffee. And if you make cold brew at home, you can make both cold and hot coffee with your solution. Everyone loves an adventure story. Make your day an epic adventure with a steaming cup or cold brew of Urban Joe. To order this signature blend for yourself and learn more about J. Brooks Coffee, click the link in the show notes or visit jbrookscoffeeroasters.com. That's the letter J, brookscoffeeroasters.com. You are officially invited to create some breathing room. This is the absolute best podcast to find the strategies, resources, and motivation you need to stop drowning in overwhelm, break free from hustle culture, and live out your God-given purpose. I'm your host, Rachel Baker, and girl, I've been there, done that. It is my God-given purpose to help you find space for an intentional, so you can confidently live in those strengths, skills, and passions that light you up and serve others. I know you are ready to create some breathing room, so let's do it together. Welcome to episode 35 of Create Some Breathing Room. I cannot wait for you to hear today's speaker. We have an amazing guest today. We are talking with Keri Eichberger, and she is a precious soul. We connected also at the retreat. You've heard a few now. If you've been listening for a while, you've heard from a couple ladies I met at the retreat that I went to in Gatlinburg. And we just connected so much because her recent book is all about winning over worry. Does anyone struggle with worry out there? I'm going to go with yes. So you definitely want to listen today. And if you don't know Keri already, I want to tell you a little bit about her. She lives just outside of Louisville, Kentucky with her husband, Mike, and their 5 kids. Bless her. Her own roller coaster of life trials, redeemed by a relationship with the Lord, fueled her desire to help others discover and experience the fullness of life found in Jesus. Amen. I love that. After years of writing for an online audience, she became ordained through Southeast Christian Church, giving her life to full-time ministry. Keri's the author of Win Over Worry, which we are going to talk about today, and continues to follow her calling to bring faith-filled encouragement to others around the world through her social media influence, devotionals, her faith-fueled podcast, and Christian nonfiction books. And I am pumped for this conversation because anytime I can hear from somebody who's really done a deep dive into overcoming the struggle with worry, I am here for that conversation. I need it desperately. So welcome, Keri.
Oh, Rachel. Yes, I'm really excited to talk about this. And I really love your podcast of breathing room. So I think these are going to weave greatly together.
When I saw your book and saw the topic and the content you have in it, I thought this is exactly what we need because worry is one of the things that gets in the way most of us allowing ourselves that breathing room, I think. And so I'm excited to dive in that. Before we go too deep, I do ask every guest. And so I'm going to ask you, when you think of breathing room in your life, what does that look or feel like to you to have breathing room?
I mean, just when you say those words, it just it washes this glorious sense over me. It feels like peace. It feels like less anxiety. It feels like slowing down. In fact, what I love about this, and I cannot always say this, but I'll tell you right now, I'm actually in a season where I've created breathing room, and I can rarely tell you that. I can rarely confess that. But the sad thing is, and confession, it's because I was in a season that I did not create breathing room, and I hit total burnout.
Yeah.
And then I was forced forced to create breathing room. And so I'm finally there again. And I'm just like, I can literally breathe. When you create that space, you physically can feel like you can breathe
Yes.
deeper. And it just feels like a weight lifted. It feels lighter. And what does that look like to me? It looks like more time with God. Recently, there was something that really spoke to me, and it was this idea of I need to stop focusing so much on doing things for God and spending more time with God.
I literally have a Post-it note on my monitor in front of me that says that exact thing because I need that reminder every day. So I love you just said that.
Yes. I needed that so badly. And it was like, but it took me a long time to really let it sink in and to soak in so much that I allowed it to pour out of my life, because what I know best how to do is not do that, to be busy. Okay. To be busy. And, but it feels so good. So I could elaborate on this answer, because when I create breathing room, it just feels, it is, I wish I need to start writing down more how I feel when I experience that, because that is the space that I want to live in. And that is where I really, truly can see the goodness of God too.
Yes. I love that. It's so funny you said that, because I have not journaled for years, and I just started back into it. And one of the things I was doing the other day was I made 2 lists, and one of them was kind of how I was feeling in that moment. And things were real heavy. I was having a bad pain day, with my rheumatoid arthritis, and just things were not feeling awesome. We all have those days. And then I made a list of how I wanted to feel or how I like to feel. And the difference of the words, instead of that pain and heavy and dark. And this sense of freedom, light, all of those things. And so, I love that idea. And it was really helpful for me to just be like, this is where I'm currently living, so how it feels. And I can be here. This is the goal. What will it take to make that move? And you mentioned, your confession of being in this space now because you weren't in that space. You were in that state of burnout before. I know so many women listening right now who are like, same girl, same, because a lot of times that's what brings us to where we have to create some breathing room, right? We're out of options. Like it's that, or I'm going to just fall out on the floor. I got nothing.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I love that was your choice,
Yeah. I mean, it was a choice, but almost also didn't feel like a choice, because I felt physically like sometimes you crash and burn. It's like, all right, Keri, if you're not going to take the space you need, God will show you that you need to take that space, and He will physically wear you down so much that you can't. And that's kind of where I was. So, but learning to not. I love this because I think it's so important to learn not to get to that point. And I think that's I know where you're headed with this is with what you're doing is to help so many of us not to get to that place.
Right. Let's look for the warning signs. Let's
keep that space in our life so that we don't have to crash.
Right. Protect it. Put boundaries around it. I love it.
Right.
Awesome. Okay. So I really want to just immediately dive into your book because it's a beautiful resource and I want everybody to know about it. So the full title, subtitle all of it. It's Win Over Worry, Conquer What Shakes You, and Soar with the One Who Overcomes. You talk about the feeling, just reading that, hearing that, the feeling that I get, it's just that sense of peace. And so I would love to know what led you to write this book, who it's for. Just tell us a little bit of the background of it.
Yeah. Well, the book is, I know this sounds cliche. It's for everyone, but really, truly it is. And you mentioned the subtitle, and in the subtitle where it says conquer what shakes you, I intentionally did that because that's everything. Every day we're presented with things that shake us. So we all worry, although we don't all want to admit it at times that we worry, but so we're going to call it something else. We all have thoughts that just make us uneasy, that give us uncertainty about the future. And that's something that really everyone, if you think about it, can relate to. So, but this came from a place of my own struggle. And I think a lot of authors can relate that usually when they write about something, it's because they have trudged through the dark side of it themselves. And which is honestly one reason why initially I wasn't so sure this was a book I should be writing. because I originally thought I should write about something that I'm like an expert at, not something that I've struggled with myself, but quickly learned different, back up a bit. I hadn't planned on writing at all. I mean, it was not something that I grew up wanting to do, is to be an author. So I have 5 kids, like you mentioned.
Bless
and
you.
after
I'm just going to keep saying it. Bless you.
So after so many things happened, it would take you we'd have to talk for another hour to get you up to speed to where I was. So after I had my 5th baby, which really I say my 5th, it was 4 and 5. I had twins as my number 4. So that's how that quickly came to be. But after I had the twins, I suffered postpartum depression. And I had never experienced that before with my other pregnancies. And so that really threw me off. And I'd look back realizing God led me through that season so intentionally, because he then used that I then started seeing a Christian counselor who prescribed journaling for me, and I began to write. And I combined that with so many years I had spent seeking God and learning to love to read and to seek his word. So much wisdom I had gained through some of the difficult experiences I had been through in my life. And then when I paired that with the journaling and the writing I was doing, and I was pouring out encouragement basically to myself on paper. And I thought, all these light bulbs went off. What if I could help somebody else? And so anyway, that became, then all of a sudden these nudges started that I decided I wanted to write a book. And that was not, again, worry was not the topic that was on my mind at the time. I just wanted to serve others where they were and help them. And because that was my desire, was to truly help other people, I asked my audience, what is it that you struggle with? What are the types of things? And I listed 4 options. I did a poll. And when the number one thing they came back with was worry. I shouldn't even put that on there because that's not what I wanted to write about. But
didn't actually mean that.
I was just, yeah.
If you could pick something else.
But it was okay, so but then I thought, as much as I said I wasn't sure this is what I should write about, somebody once told me, if you're a step ahead of someone, you can help them. And I thought, maybe I am the right person for this, because I can walk alongside someone and say, I've been there. I'm still walking through it, but listen, I have come so far. And that is the truth of the matter, even though it's something that's still near and dear because I do struggle with it. I have overcome so much, and I've been able to add so much. When we talk about soaring with the one who overcomes, I have had those moments of feeling like I'm soaring with the Lord through things that once debilitated me and I was captivated by fear. Then I did some research and digging into my life and the past and how I really got to where I was. But it became such a passion of mine to help other people, because I thought I have come so far. And even in me continuing to walk through and teach others, I've continued, God has continued to use that in my life to help me continue to overcome.
I love that. And one of the things that really jumped out to me, you're talking about doing the journaling and looking back at your past and all of that. A lot of, we've talked about this, a lot of the ladies that I talk with and work with, and I am guilty of this too. We get kind of in our routines on that hamster wheel, getting things done. There's no space if we don't create it for the journaling, for the looking back for. And so all of that intentional effort and time that you spent now culminated in this resource for women who are struggling. Obviously, there are plenty of them if that's what they voted for in your poll, right? People are looking for this. And so I want to just validate and honor that time, that breathing room that you created in your life to really dig into that and find those pieces of your story to share. Because one of the things I preach on a lot, I guess, is how God can take the ugliest, most broken pieces of our life that we don't ever want to think of again and redeem them. He redeems all things, right? And just making beautiful things that glorify him out of the ugliest parts of our story. I've had that happen time and time again. And so just you taking that time and effort allowed him to work through that. And so I just thank you. And I wanted to acknowledge that because what a blessing. I love it. Okay. We need some practical steps here, Keri. And we've said, we're not trying to create to-do lists. We don't need more things to do, but just some mindset pieces, some practical things as we are going through our day and trying to be more intentional and proactive. Just what are some of those factors that you found that keep us in that state of worry or in that state of anxiety about our tasks and our schedules, when we're looking at like what we should be spending our time on and when we should be doing it, like all of those things, what do you see that really feeds into that worry and anxiety?
The biggest thing for me, and I think for a lot of people, honestly, is this idea of control. This idea that we are in control, this false idea that we are in control. That's something that I've had. So you talk about those just mindset shifts. It's been that's been my mindset shift. I've had to say every day to myself, Keri, you are not in control.
Yeah.
And God is in control. And that's where I think that many times when we believe that we are in control, it causes us to work harder, do more, busy ourselves, or we distract ourselves from the things that we struggle with. We avoid things. There's just so much we do to try to control our day. And because we're worried about an outcome of some sort, or we have this underlying fear, but we're basically living in our will over the preferred will and way of God when we should be spending more time with God. And so what that looks like for me practically, and I can be so much more productive when I do this, when I spend more time in the morning with God versus like jumping into my to-do list or all these things I think I have to get to right away, or else this won't happen because I'm trying to control this outcome. I spend time with God and consult with him and ask him what he wants me to do and ask him to order my day. Not only is just giving me more peace about the situation, but he will lead you to where he wants you to go. And that is what has changed everything for me. It used to be, here's Keri's to-do list. All these things that I think I need to do because probably somebody else is doing it. It's like made up because of somebody else's expectations of me.
Yeah.
Instead of what does God want for me, and then just taking like one step. So even though I said I'm in a season where I've created so much more breathing room, and at first it was confusing. Like I felt like I just needed to do nothing because I was so exhausted.
Right.
But there's also that part of me that has to be productive, has to do something. And so I would say, all right, God, what is just the one thing? It's just that one next step. And instead of going to my to-do list, it was just like, all right, God, you give me that one next step and just take that one next step and just trusting him. So I would just say control is a huge factor that in our worry that keeps us anxious in our tasks and keeps us from being peaceful in what we're doing. So it's acknowledging that we're not in control.
I could not feel that any more deeply. And right now, just as at the time of this recording, I'm very much in a season of acknowledging it. Just the awareness of it, I think, is huge. As you are feeling crazy, as you are feeling overwhelmed or whatever it is. And I feel it with work things. I recently, it was like, we got to do a sabbatical. I can't keep creating content. And so just to have these times to meet and talk with you lovely ladies and share this with the world, like that's what I have capacity for right now. And so to cut back things with work, but also with parenting, that sense of control in parenting. It's one thing when they're littles and you kind of have to have a little more control. I've got teenagers in my house right now. Girl, what even is this?
Oh boy. Yep.
I know you feel this. I know you know.
Yeah.
And just to know that like, I'm here to coach you. I'm here to love you. Please, Lord Jesus. Guard and direct us, right? Like
absolutely.
It's a whole thing. And so letting go of some of those things, it does give a sense of peace when I think the crucial piece of that is when you know you are relying on the one who overcomes. If I were just to say like, forget it, I don't have control anyway. And just that would leave me in fear, honestly.
Right. Yeah.
But to know, and honestly, I'm thankful when I can remind myself, like, you don't have to control this outcome.
Yes.
He is in control. Hallelujah. Like, that's my immediate response is just like, he's got it handled so much better than I could anyway. Why do I keep trying to grab it back?
Right. And the good news about this control, I think some people have this feeling of like, well, what if they can't trust God's control? What if that control is not good? When you pair the idea that not only is God in control, but he also loves you more than you can possibly imagine, that means that his control is good and what he has planned is good.
Right.
So that is where if I can truly trust not only that he's in control, but his control is bigger and better than mine could ever be.
Yes.
That is where that true peace, when you truly understand that is when real peace can set in and you can let go. And amen to the parenting. You're right with work, absolutely, with control. But and my son just he's got his license a couple weeks ago. And boy, if I had understood more than ever, I have no control. I'm not behind the wheel of that car. I'm not in that car.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do. And I've had to remind myself once again that God is in control and he is good.
And somehow, this is the other piece of that. I have to remember, like, God loves my child even more than I do, if that's possible.
Unbelievable.
Like that, I'm like, okay, he loves me. He loves them even more than I do. Don't know how, but he does.
Right.
And it's going to be okay. And that expectation piece, right? Whose expectations are we, living up to? Why do they matter? And I think also comparison feeds into that as well. Like, how are their kids doing? How are my kids doing? What, that whole thing. So many good things just to be aware of going through the day.
This is therapy for me right now, by the way. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad. We're all just getting our therapy for the day.
That's right.
Because same. Okay. There's a section in your book that has us asking why. Right. You have it in big old letters, why, to get to the root of our worries and fears. So can you talk to me a little bit, because it's not just, here's my fear, here's what I should be doing, but the why of it. Talk to me about that.
There's so much there. So at the surface, we can worry about a million things. We could spend all day writing down all the little things that we worry about, and it overwhelms us. It's important for us to dig down to the root of why we're worried, because what's hiding beneath all these worries is fear. And even beneath the root of the fears, there's only a couple root fears really, truly that we're believing. And when I say we're believing and the fears, so let's understand real quick that fear is a lie from the enemy. That he is a liar, feeding us these lies. And because they're lies, that means that there's truth that we should be believing. And we say we believe God, but we don't always live like we believe the truth, that we believe God. And we sort of touched on this, the truth that God is in control and that God loves us more than we can imagine. But at the root of all these worries, I identify in my book that there's two root fears we can really trace them all back to. And it's the fear of worthlessness and the fear of helplessness. And that sounds so presumptuous to say that, but I bet if you went through the process, you would find that, because at the root of all these things we're worried about, even me with my son, I'm worried about him driving. What is it I'm really worried about? I'm worried about something happening. I'm worried about losing a child. And then at that, I'm worried about either, being alone. I'm worried about being I'm fearful of being helpless because of the pain I might experience. And there's a lot of pain at the root of these worries and fears. And when we're in pain, we feel helpless. Or on the flip side, if it's a worthy issue, if we feel pain, we feel lack of worth. But when we can identify that, we can then acknowledge the truth, which then can seep back out into our lives. So it's then focusing on those truths that help make those changes. But I think it's important to understand, and also for me, when I'm worried about something and I can identify, wait a minute, this is a lie, this is the enemy, and that just sometimes alone can be enough to make me angry and say, okay, forget it, I'm not believing a lie.
Right.
Sometimes it's that simple.
Hold on a minute.
Wait a second. This is not, you're not going to get me this time.
Yeah.
The whole not today, Satan thing, that is when that should pop up, when you're starting to worry, because he's feeding you lies and we're believing lies, but we don't believe the liar. We believe God, and we believe that God is in control and that he loves us.
That's so good. Yeah. In the past few weeks went through some of these things and some of the things that I was really holding on to and worrying about and anxious about. And down at the core of it, it was either worth or feeling like I couldn't help. Why can't I do something about this? So I love that you dove that deep and were able to identify those things. And I'm just going to keep it like, get the book, Keri's going to walk you through this process, go through your own ish and sort it out and figure out what those lies are, and hit back with that truth. And that, I think it is righteous indignation is the best way I can describe when I realize that it is, I've had a lie, I'm ruminating, on this thing. And I realize what it is. I'm like, excuse you. Who let you in? Right.
Yeah,
I get mad about it.
It makes you angry. I get fired up. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. That's so funny. Hey, it's Rachel, your go-to encourager and coach. I know you love our podcast talks, but imagine taking that connection to the next level in person. I'm more than a clarity coach. I'm someone who's been in the trenches, juggling all the things. I get it. I've danced with chaos, overloaded schedules, and the struggle to prioritize self-care. But I found the rhythm. And I've got the strategies to help your ladies create some breathing room. So if you're organizing an event, whether it's a conference, church gathering, or retreat, and you want a speaker who brings humor, real talk, and a dose of inspiration, I'm your girl. Let's chat about making your event a memorable one. Visit racheldbaker.com/speaking. That's racheldbaker.com/speaking. I can't wait to connect. I got a couple more questions because this is so good. So when it comes to making decisions, being intentional, right? Trying to get off that hamster wheel that a lot of us feel like we're on day to day, to be intentional, be more productive instead of just being busy. We want to be productive with our time and our life. What suggestions do you have just to get over that mountain of worry? I feel like we're like on this path trying to live our life, and this mountain of worry gets in the way. And I want to drill through it. I want to climb over it. I don't know, whatever that looks like. And you've talked about some combating with truth, so I'd love if there are any other strategies or suggestions that you have for that.
Absolutely. I actually have quite a few in the book, but right now there's one specific that has been really close to my heart lately and on my mind. And a lot of it being because we're, coming through in holiday seasons. And I have so much of this mindset of gratitude in my heart because of where our focus has been, which is a good thing. But I talk a lot about in my book, specifically in my chapter about joy, focusing on gratitude through your fears and worries. And when you can just and I have a lot of different specific ways that I do this. Some can be as simple as just in the moment, if you can remember to just, when you're worried about something, to just what are you thankful for in that? But sometimes I have to be intentional, and like, if I'm feeling really stubborn, to be thankful, and I'm so worried about something that's wrapping me up with this like frustration almost, then I will write down, I will sit and write down 10 things I'm thankful for. And this just happened to me actually this past weekend. We were, my daughter had to go to the emergency room. She's got a nut allergy and she had an anaphylactic reaction, which had never happened. It was terrifying. And I was worried, but I mean, in a way that I've never been worried before. I sat there on the side of her bed in the hospital, and I'm like, God, I'm watching the monitors. My heart's racing and all these things. And I just remembered what I had been doing and just thanking him. And I'm like, all right, what can I be thankful for in this moment? And even though I was worried for her, I'm like, she's here and she's, we made it to the hospital, and I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful that this happened to teach us for the next. And I'm thankful that, little things around the situation. I just started shifting my focus to things that God had provided and done for us surrounding the very thing I was worried about. And it really did make a difference in the way that the worry was affecting me. It allowed more peace in my heart, which is what I was longing for in that moment, because I just felt so rattled and shaken.
Yeah. So helpless, right?
Yes. Helpless. Absolutely. And so that in that moment, that was helpful. And I've done that many times with things that have been, and I've done it with my son with driving. It's like, okay. And someone told me this, well, let's start thanking God when he makes it safe to destination. So I just started shifting my focus to things I could be thankful for in the very midst of the thing that was causing me fear and worry.
That's so good. I love that. And as I imagine you in that situation with your daughter, especially in the hospital, how much better then are you able to be more present and a calming presence for her when
Yes.
you are in that different mindset, that different state? If I know as a mom, if I am feeling frantic and worried and stressed, like my kids feel that. They
Yes.
know, and they're kind of, I've heard we all kind of go up on the ceiling. It's like we need to peel everybody back down off the ceiling. And we all get,
Yes.
rattled up there. And so I
Mhm.
love that image of just you sitting there and feeling like, we need to peel mom off the ceiling. But as you kind of bring yourself down in the things that you
Right.
can find to be grateful for, then she is able to benefit from that as well. And so
Absolutely.
I love that idea. So with the driving, my daughter has her permit so far.
Yeah.
This summer will be the license. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to need to pull for,
Yeah.
grateful that she has a friend to go visit. Grateful for
Yes.
the running car.
And the second thing I will say that I would go into next that I also did, and this is what I would recommend in a situation like that is, of course, prayer. I mean, I think that sounds so simple and cliche, but I was also, of course, talking to God in those moments and praying, but proclaiming trust in those moments, in any of the moments we're worried and we're afraid, and just, God, I trust you. And sometimes it's like those breathing techniques where you're just like, deep breathing in and out. God, I trust you.
Yes.
And sometimes it's as simple as just proclaiming that your belief in those moments that God, like, you're in control. I trust you. I trust you. How many times do I have to say it? And the more we repeat that in our hearts and our heads, and I think it really does help to relieve that too.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest things with worry, with anxiety, is that ruminating. We get stuck on whatever that thought is, that thing that we're worried about, and we're just repeating it over and over in our mind.
Yep.
Like, I can't, or I'm scared, whatever it is. And so I love the idea of like the breath prayer, where you breathe in one thing and out another, just to one, calm your body, but two, calm your mind and heart and refocus in that way. That's wonderful. We got to wrap up because you and I could talk about this basically all day. Okay. Couple of last questions that are quick, with the idea of allowing breathing room. Right now, you've been intentionally doing more of that. So are there any tools or strategies that you feel like have really helped you either manage your time better or allowed you to create more breathing room in your life?
Yeah, these are kind of tied together because I am a to-do list person.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people can relate to that. I always have a list every day of the things. And my to-do list is actually getting shorter because I'm removing some of the fluff. But I have started to, on my to-do list, put in those practices to give me breathing room. So I'm literally writing rest, like from a certain hour to the next hour of the day. Or I'm reading, just I'm putting that in, and versus squeezing it in when I have some free time, which, how that happens doesn't
never
happen.
It happens never.
Yeah, I have been intentional. And so along with that, my husband and I, we plan date nights every week. And that's something that gives me breathing room because I have 5 kids and our schedules are crazy. If I don't plan that, prioritize it, and protect it, then somebody's going to take it from me. Same with your day in general, but that time is time for me to breathe and just to have, this is like, no one's going to be asking me for anything. I'm not working. I'm not parenting unless, an emergency.
Right.
But that is something that we prioritize at least once a week, sometimes twice a week when I need it more. To be honest.
Get it, girl. That's so good. That's so good. And we talk a lot in this space about, creating those times, like I'm going to read at this time, protecting it, and then respecting yourself enough to show up for that appointment with yourself or with your book, your bed, whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah. So, that's so good. And then obviously your book, your podcast, all of that's going to be linked. Are there any other books or podcasts that you would recommend to our ladies here?
Yes. Okay. So I love to read and I have a lot of books, but I'm just like top of mind. And so you know very well Mary Morant. So we just
Oh, love
I
Mary.
know she's a great friend. And I didn't meet her until the retreat we went on. But I was inspired to buy her book Dirt actually before I even got home. It was at my door. And I loved Dirt so much that, of course, then I told my husband, you have to read this book. It was written by a female, but it's that good. And he loved it too.
Yeah.
But then I got her book, Slow Growth Equals Strong Roots. And so I'm reading that now. And like that, talking about like creating breathing room, like that has been so good for me right now. Speaking straight to the heart of someone who also is a striver and can't stop sometimes. It's been, so I could go on, but I love her words and they speak straight to my heart. And honestly, when we talk about breathing room, I think about the things that the way that she writes, kind of makes me feel that openness in my soul. You know?
Oh, Mary's got a way with beautiful words that I just admire so much when I read her work. It's just, she was our first guest interview on this podcast. And we talked a lot about that, just like slow it down.
Yes.
Take a breath.
Yes.
So, I love that that's speaking to you right now. All right. Last question. And it's super easy. Where can people find you, Keri?
Well, my website, KeriEichberger.com. It's Keri with a K, but I'm on Instagram quite a bit, unless I'm taking some time off, which actually happens more now as I'm creating more breathing room in my life. But about every day you can find me there on Instagram.
Awesome. Everybody go find Keri. She's amazing. I know this has been so helpful for so many in our community. It's been helpful for me. Like you said, little therapy session today here on the podcast. And I hope we can do this again. I love talking with you. So thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today.
It's been a really great conversation.
Thanks so much for listening today. Be sure to check the show notes to get links for all the resources mentioned in this episode. As always, your reviews make such a difference. So thank you for taking the time to leave those for us. Your ratings and thoughts mean so much. I love reading each and every one. As we wrap up today, please remember, life can feel crazy and overwhelming sometimes, but you will never regret taking the time to create some breathing room.